what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
You're listening to Arkansas Preps Weekly on Natural State Sports, your top source for the biggest news in high school sports across Arkansas.
Here we go.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into episode 39 of Arkansas Preps Weekly here on the Natural State Sports Network alongside Kevin Bohannon. My name's Kyle Sutherland, and it is officially playoff time here in Arkansas. Kevin, we love this time of year. It's a bittersweet thing because, yes, it's the best teams are playing against one another, but it also means that the end of the season is near. So it's one of those where you just got to kind of take what you get and just be thankful that for the most part, you're going to have some pretty good football just about in every game. Maybe not so much in the first round that we're going to cover here, but still plenty of great matchups. I know that I'm really excited about the one that we're calling for the Buzz this week, Camden Fairview at Harding Academy. I guess technically at Harding University against Harding Academy, but still got plenty, like I said, on the slate for this week, and it's going to be a fun about month, 3 weeks or so as we wrap up the 2024 season.
Yeah, a lot of anticipation. Of course, you start looking at brackets and start looking at potential matchups, not just, in the second round, but, who could make it to War Memorial. And that all started on Friday night. You still got a little over half the teams in the state of Arkansas will still be playing football. So a lot of games. There won't be 100, but there's still going to be quite a few. And like you said, some good ones. Harding Academy and Camden Fairview are really at the top of my list. In terms of competitive matchups, but this thing is who's going to chase down the favorites, and that's one of the things that is always fun to talk about come playoff time.
Well, we'll go ahead and we'll get right into it here as we start in Class 7A as we always do, and I accidentally mashed the enter button. Sorry about that. My arm did it. So you look at Class 7A, Kevin, and we had a chance to call the Bryant and Conway game for the Buzz last week. Finally, I got to call that game. We've had a few hiccups over the past few years. But Bryant really, after they turned the ball over twice and scored 42 unanswered points, it's tough for me to imagine. Last year, Bryant was still playing pretty good football this time, but they were just really banged up. Had to play a lot of guys, and they're not going to use that as an excuse, but it is reality. I just look at these matchups right now. Bentonville's playing really good football. Pulaski Academy's shown us a lot. Maybe hasn't gotten the credit that they deserve. I know Conway beat them up pretty bad, but they hung with Bryant for a while. I just look at these matchups here, and it's very hard for me to imagine that not only will Bryant get back, especially if they play the way they did on Friday night. Now, who knows? Fayetteville or PA, they could give them a push there in the semifinals if that is to happen. Fayetteville, you look at Bryant's run through those 5 in a row. They were the only team that, I know this was a long time ago, but they were the only one that hung with them throughout those 5 state title runs. The rest of them were really just blowouts. Pulaski Academy is really about the only central team that's given Bryant a game for an extended period of time this year. But I just don't know, man. I love the way Bentonville's playing. They're on a 7-game win streak after starting 0-3. But I just look at all this, and it's very tough for me to imagine. Of course, many are looking at a possibly good matchup between Conway and Bentonville in the I keep saying quarterfinals. In the semifinals, that Bentonville team that played Conway in week 1 is a lot different now, obviously, on this 7-game win streak. But saying all that to say, it's just tough for me to imagine Bryant with the way they played the other night, them not raising the trophy for the 5th time in 6 years.
Yeah, it's starting to become a pattern. Not only with Bryant, but look at Bentonville. Slow start, hot finish, conference championship. Last year they finished as the 2nd seed and got to go. Got a bye, then got to go to the state championship game. It was funny listening to the game on the way back from Clinton on Friday night. You kind of see, Bryant's kind of self-imploding with the 2 turnovers, the muff punt. And Conway with Wesley Tappett quarterback is going to be fine. But, and I said this, it doesn't matter who's at quarterback. Bryant is still going to win that game. Would it have been by 35? Probably not. But they just flexed their muscle. And a lot of it came down to Jordan Walker. Jordan Walker has, watching his development over the past 3 years, from when he got pulled in the state championship game to, coming back last year, and then what he's done this year. He's an effective, efficient passer at matriculating the ball down the field. Him and Kamari Austin are one of the best duos in the state of Arkansas. You know, I was watching a lot of film this weekend, especially Austin. You know, he's a deep ball guy, and when you can throw it up and have that confidence that your guy's going to run under it and get your team some points or a huge chunk play, you're able to take those chances more often than not. You see it with Greenwood, with Grant Carnes, and Kane Archer. So, it's just tough to see, especially the defense and how fast and physical that Bryant plays with. So, yeah, it's theirs. The 4-5 matchups are probably going to be the best. It wouldn't surprise me if the West wins both of those games. Springdale's been playing well this season. This is new territory for them, coming in, getting to play Cabot. They get to host Cabot, and that's something that, two teams that Cabot used to run the ball a whole lot. Springdale likes to, but they're a little bit more flexible than, what they used to be. So good matchup there. And then Bentonville West and Little Rock Christian, I could see Bentonville West winning that one. I think they're trending up while Little Rock Christian's kind of flatline, maybe down a little bit right now, kind of limping into the playoffs, especially after getting beat 40-8 by your rival. A lot of people were like, oh, it's going to be a good game. I thought PA would win by at least 21 points. That's just how good they are right now. Brandon Cobb's playing at a different level. Had 6 more touchdowns on Friday night total, rushing and passing. So interesting matchup, PA and Fayetteville, second round. But don't forget about Rogers. Jeff Regan, the yardage machine. He's had 2 games where he's had over 500 yards of total offense this year. That's rushing and passing. 2 weeks ago, he had 378 on the ground. Yeah, he'll take – Rogers will go as far as he'll take him. So them in Conway in the second round looks really good. But, yeah, it could come down to the 2 teams from the West and 2 teams from the Central getting to the semifinals again.
That was what I was going to end 7A on, was asking you about, because you'd think that Rogers will likely play Conway in the quarterfinal round. That's going to be an uphill climb. Look, Southwest, we want to first off congratulate them for making their first playoff in school history. This is now their 5th season, and they get to the postseason, but got an uphill climb against the Mounties, as you said, just really an offensive machine. Do you see, after a week off, kind of getting to lick your wounds and figuring some things out, this Conway defense was only allowing, 11, 12 points before the Bryant game.
Uh-huh.
Do you see this maybe being a bit of a shootout? And again, we're just, of course, assuming that Rogers plays Conway in the quarterfinal round in Conway. Do you see that being maybe more of a shootout, or could Conway's defense turn it around? Because like you said, Jeff Regan that offense led by him is not one that's easy to defend.
Yeah, and Bentonville kind of slowed them down a little bit, but not much. I mean, they put up 72 weeks ago, and when I'm talking about Rogers, so nobody has really just shut them down this year. They've been slowed a little bit. Of course, they lost against Fayetteville 41-38, so they're able to get in those games. We haven't seen Conway. They pretty much destroyed everybody up until the Bryant game. So can they hang in a shootout? Can they go blow for blow? That was one of the things. I think, having Buck James at the helm of the Wampus Cats, they're going to bounce back. Quarterback situation, we'll figure it out. We knew that Garrett Wilson had been taking snaps all week, but he had done that the last 3 weeks. So until something else changes and it's him at the top of the depth chart when Coach James sends it out, I'll just go about their business. But it wouldn't surprise me. Rogers beating Conway would not shock me, but we'll see.
Then on down to Class 6A. A couple of interesting storylines that I noticed in this one. Kevin, I'll start by saying I look at Mountain Home, and I think that they've got a legit shot of making it to the semifinals. Now, got to see Greenwood, but I don't think there's any question that they're a better team as far as skill-wise over Sheridan. Now, obviously, Sheridan's got one of the better running backs, regardless of classification in the state, in sophomore Zay Stevens. Then you play a Catholic team if you get over the Yellow Jackets. And Catholic, yes, they've proven that they deserve their respect this year. What is their 8-2 or 9-1? I think they finished the regular, so certainly deserve of their respect. But I think I've watched film on both a little bit over the past week or so, And I think I'd like Mountain Home's chance, especially with what Mountain Home did by they hung with Greenwood for about a half, which, I mean, if you hang with Greenwood for basically a half, that's, or any really extended amount of time, that's a win in itself. I say that kind of tongue in cheek, of course, but I like their path to play Greenwood again. I think that they can beat Catholic in a shootout. And then also on the bottom, probably the one that I'm looking for on upset watch is Marion. Now, Van Buren hasn't had a great season, but you look at what they did last year. So Marion was 7-1 heading into week 9. The past 2 games they've lost by a combined 76-24. Now, granted, it was against Catholic, it was against Benton. So you look at the East; those are the top 2 teams. But Kevin, if this were like week 2, week 3, even maybe midseason, it wouldn't really concern me. But it's playoff time now. You can't be playing like that, against the best of the best. And again, Van Buren, they're not a great football team. They've lost their past 3 games by substantial margins. But last season, the Pointers were 4-6 going to West Memphis and then beat the Blue Devils handily. So last year was last year, now is now. But I think I am a little bit alarmed with what we've seen from Marion the past couple of weeks. And I think Van Buren, they could give them a really good game.
Yeah, and Coach Henry at Van Buren knows he's a smart guy. He's been around a while. He's been in some big games as a coach, and Catholic and Benton really kind of showed the blueprint of how to slow Marion down. They really, Jalen Smith had been throwing, running, catching balls past everybody this year. So that's the big thing the last 2 weeks have shown me, is that they've played up in competition a little bit, where you need to be in that top 4, top 5 to say, hey, you're a legitimate state title contender, and they've fallen short both weeks. So and Benton did that with Little Cobb at quarterback. I say Little Cobb because I know his family, and I'm known that family since I was little. So it was good to see the sophomore come out and let his guys do the work. Run, they ran the football really well against Marion, and at 55-10, Benton just didn't miss a beat. Can Drew Davis get back? I don't think Benton's road. I like it. It's they're probably going to play Shiloh in the semis. Don't overlook Lake Hamilton. They're rolling right now. That Jonesboro Lake Hamilton game is a little intriguing. The problem with Van Buren, going back to that real quick, that's like 280-mile trip one way. That can take a lot out of a team. You start to see that when you get these playoff matchups that are West against East, especially when there's not many in the central part of the state. So that's the only thing that can maybe mess them up a little bit. El Dorado, Russellville, kind of intriguing. Not really. I think El Dorado wins that game. And like you said, Mountain Home and Sheridan, and I mentioned it on the scoreboard show Friday night, there's a lot of history between these 2 schools in other sports. They've had some on-field, off-field brawls in different sports. So whether that's relevant now in this generation, probably not, but still a tough place to go play at Mountain Home. And what they did with Greenwood in the first half is they just tried to keep the ball away from them. They ran the ball up and down the field. Chenoweth, and what's the quarterback's name? It's not Baker.
Brantley Phillips, isn't it?
Brantley Phillips. There you go. So they just ran the ball. You try to control the game, and it was only 14-0. I think Archer had 3 or 4 pass attempts at halftime. I know they ran the ball a lot in the second half, but it's 42-0 at the end of the game. But nobody's going to beat Greenwood. And I mean, it would just shock me. The fact that Kane Archer has the same number of incompletions as he does passing touchdowns is otherworldly to me right now. And that was something that Tim Terry told us on Friday night. And when I heard it, I was like, man, that's shocking, but not really. I mean, his attempts are low in the season comparatively because he's only played in the second half of, 3 or 4 games. He's played like 8 drives. So that's the equivalent, of 2 full games. So I think that, or 1 full half, 8 drives, not 8 quarters. I just think they're just too good. And Cash Archer's got like 22 tackles for loss in half the games this year. So, yeah, it's Greenwood until somebody proves otherwise. But I do like Benton's chances to get to the finals.
Yeah, I like you brought up the Lake Hamilton, because Lake Hamilton, Jonesboro is just – they've been one of those teams. Even now, I'm like, I don't want to just say that they're going to get rolled over, because I believed in what they had coming into the year. I know it hasn't really been what they might have expected, but then you think about it, if it's Chase Cobb who had a fantastic game, on Friday night, his first high school start. Think about that against the Lake Hamill. This team, and again, I know that was then and this is now, but you think about that Week 10 matchup when they were in the same conference a couple years ago, with that finish they had at Lake Hamilton. Man, you just never know. Two long-time coaches, Brad Harris and Tommy Gillern have been doing it well for a long time. So you never know, that one could be possibly competitive. But yeah, I'm with you. It's just, Kevin, when you think about a team that was already the favorite and a heavy favorite in Greenwood, and then you experience the heartbreak that they had, and now they're playing for a fallen teammate. There's no way. I can't say that they're going to win 6A and win it pretty convincingly. I just don't think that.
Yeah. So. Talking to Kane Archer Friday night, I'm trying to go through questions to ask him, and he's one of the most humble young men that I've talked to, and that's the past 5 years. I know the media career I've had has been young, but he is well versed beyond his years, and it's always about credit to everybody else. The O-line blocks, the receivers catch the ball, and the running backs blocking, catch the ball and run the ball. So it's a total team effort, and it's just one of those things that train is rolling, and nobody's going to stop it right now. No, you almost did it.
Rats. You know what? I actually hit it. And then I hit it again, so I kind of double mistake myself. Twice. Yeah, I know, man. I got to get not be so trigger happy. But speaking of trigger happy, man, talk about what Robinson. We thought that this was going to be a competitive game between Robinson and Maumelle.
Did we?
Okay. Let me say that I did. I actually thought that it was going to be. I thought it was going to be close at least for a little bit. I did have Robinson winning, but. I look at this Maumelle team this year, and then they're playing against Greenbrier, they've won. Not only have the Panthers won 5 of their last 6, they shut out Bologna 21. Bologna's been a very good team this year in year 1 under Coach Ashcraft. Kevin, that's the first matchup and whenever we started kind of figuring out, especially once we figured out the seeding on Thursday night of what the 5A Central was going to be, that was where I was looking at is who is going to be Maumelle's first matchup, because we've seen so much Jekyll and Hyde with Maumelle this year. They added a lot of pieces, and they're obviously a very athletic team. We've seen so many different flashes this year. But if we're talking about upsets as far as seed-wise, really Maumelle, let's just call it what it is. Other than the Searcy game, they haven't shown up in the big games like they've needed to. And a big reason for that is why when I looked at this bracket up and down, I do think, and I'm saying it on record right now, I think that if we have any upset in the first round as far as seeding wise, I think it's going to be Greenbrier over Maumelle. I just think that Greenbrier is playing such good football right now. Obviously, Coach Tribble's been around, and Coach Tribble, there's a good bit of connections. Coach Tribble coached Brian Maupin at Harding, these two know each other very well. Of course, Mop is only in year 3, so he's an up and coming coach that's got a chance to do some big things. But I look at Greenbrier was a team that we talked about in 5A that was possibly going to be a sleeper this year. And have been a little bit up and down. Maybe that West was possibly a little bit better of a conference than we might have thought it was, maybe around midseason or a couple of weeks ago even. But I just look at Enoch Hassan, fantastic running back for them that doesn't get the credit he deserves. I just think this team is playing better disciplined football right now. And I think Greenbrier is going to be, if there's any, as I said, any upsets, I think this could possibly be it in the first round.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. Watching Robinson and Maumelle Thursday night, it was, you could see who belonged and who didn't. Turnovers, sloppy play. And Robinson just taking advantage of it. 37 to nothing, right after half. So you get the mercy rule. The 15 points that Maumelle tacked on might as well have been 0, because at that point, when you're up by 35, it's done at that point. So now you regroup, you get the 2 seed, you get a home game, and you get to focus on, having your first home playoff game in the Brian Maupin era. So you do get to look forward to that. Now, stopping Greenbrier is going to be an issue. That's the problem. Enoch Hassan, close to 2,000 yards. I didn't get his stats from Friday night against Bologna, but he was over 1,700 going into that game. He's like an automatic 2 bills every Friday night, it seems. Last week he was 230. in their week 9 game. So they're rolling. Ever since they lost that 45-42 game to Morrilton, they've been rolling right along. So you had a 3-way tie for second place in the 5A West at 5-2. You had Bologna, Morrilton, Greenbrier. Morrilton just barely limped into the playoffs after starting 7-0. Then they lost 2 straight, and of course one on Friday night against Clarksville, 45-6. So they got some of their confidence back. That's the good thing. Now they have a matchup against Searcy. We don't really know how it's going to go. We know Searcy can run the ball really well with Curtis Goodrich. So that might be a decent matchup. Texarkana winning their last 3 ball games. They're going in at 3-7, Kyle. Early in the season, when you start out 0-7, things don't look good, but get a couple of breaks, things go your way. You get in with a losing record, not only overall, but in conference play as well. Congratulations, Trey Outlaw, the Razorbacks. They get to go to Valley View. Congratulations. You get to go clear across the state all the way up to Jonesboro and take on a Drew Gartman-led team that is rolling right now. They took care of business against Batesville on Friday night. They went 10-0, got that undefeated regular season. So Valley View's got home field advantage until they lose. And when could that be, Kyle? So let's look at it. Parkview, obviously, they get to play win the first round. They're going to take care of business. Then you don't know what could happen. The storyline, and everybody will talk about it and beat their chest, that Maumelle gets a chance for redemption in the second round. Maumelle can't look ahead to the second round because of what we just talked about, Greenbrier. So, yeah, everybody will talk about it, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, we can do this, we can do that. No, take care of business in the first round because you can't play the second round unless you win the first game. That's always true in every sport. The bottom half of the bracket is a lot tougher. Robinson, of course, gets home field throughout till War Memorial. They play the winner of Lakeside and Nettleton. Nettleton playing a lot better of late. They get the 3 seed. They beat Wynn, which really kind of shocked me, not the fact that they won because I picked them. They dominated Wynn, and that was a good game for Steve Hampton's team. They get to play Lakeside at Hot Springs Lakeside. That's going to be a tough game, smash mouth game. Farmington BB, kind of limps into the playoffs a little bit. Farmington's playing really well. Tommy Tice, what a job he's done. Just thinking back to getting blown out by Shiloh Christian, shootout with Harbor, and then you win 8 straight. So they're 9-1 on the year now. So, and then the game you'll be at in Searcy, Harding, and Camden Fairview should be a very good game if Junie Atkins is healthy. Nick Vaughn has his work cut out for him. Owen Miller's playing really, really well as of late. Went over 10,000 yards 2 weeks ago, but that should be the matchup of the first round of Class 5A.
Yeah, a lot of really intriguing. You mentioned it, how it's definitely a little bit more loaded on the bottom half of the bracket. You'd think that Robinson will probably take care of it. And again, you got to really credit Coach Ashcraft. He's done a great job at year 1 in Bologna. I don't know that's going to be a tough one to overcome, a Robinson team that's playing as well as they are right now. Lakeside Nettleton, Nettleton's lost 2 of its last 3, but of course one of those was they hung with Valley View. I know that, and the other loss was to Harding Academy. So the top of the conference, I think Lakeside definitely is probably the better team here, but could be intriguing. Farmington BB, you've got the coach and Tommy Tice that has coached more games than anybody in the state of Arkansas against a major up-and-comer that I believe in Justin Bigham. I think Justin Bigham's a phenomenal coach and still really young, I think this is his 4th year. It's his first year at BB. I think maybe his 3rd or 4th as a head coach. So still very young. Yeah. So not even quite a handful yet. So you got kind of the current, one of the current standards in coaching against one of the up-and-comers. And then Harding Academy in Canada, you got Junie Atkins that – Owen Miller, I think, has been talked about, a good bit just because he's taken teams to state championship games. Junie Atkins has taken teams on deep playoff runs at Camden. But the job that Junie has done, he had some big shoes to fill when Martavius Thomas graduated. And so really done well, led this offense. Trent Haygood, what is it, like 2,000 all-purpose yards? He's got over 15. Yeah. He's just probably the most underrated skill player, definitely in Class 5A, maybe the state. He's up there. So, yeah, I expect – and then, you got 2 defensive 2 teams that have played really good defense historically too. Obviously, Nick Vaughn – I think actually both Nick Vaughn and Neil Evans were defensive coordinators before. I know Nick was. before they became head coaches. So, two fantastic, again, younger coaches that are just continuing to pave their own path. Of course, Nick Vaughn, have they made the semifinals both years at Camden or just once? Either way, they've gone so quarters and semis. So, I'm really excited that, I figured that we would have, since we're having to make up one game on the buzz since we didn't call anything in week 8. I was telling RJ, I'm like, man, there's got to be at least one, especially with how all the parity that we saw in certain conferences. There's got to be at least 1, 2, 3 matchup in there. And then you sent it to me probably around 10:30 that night. And I'm like, I know where we're going. So on down to Class 4A. If I can find the slide, here we go here. So this is 3 and 4A is obviously where you got more teams. So a little bit more storylines here. And Kevin, the first one that I'm looking at right there is on the top. You've got Dardanelle Sand Lizards that ran away from Mena in their matchup last week, finished the season 9-1 to win the 4A4 conference. So you look at Dardanelle, excluding the Elkins game in week 1 where they lost 51-0. The Sand Lizards, their offense have averaged about 49, 50 points a game. The defense has allowed 13 points per game. And by all accounts, you would probably expect if the seeding goes to or if everything goes like we expect, you could have Arkadelphia coming to Dardanelle in the quarterfinal round. That's where it gets really fun for me because now, granted, a lot has happened since week 1. This Dardanelle offense, this Dardanelle team has just continued to roll. But then you look at Arkadelphia, who played a really tough non-conference schedule. In conference play, they gave up more. I think going into the Malvern game last week, they only gave up 17 points. That was the most they'd given up in conference play. And so both teams just playing exceptionally well, and that would be one of the premier quarterfinal matchups that they square off.
Yeah, and when you get 30 teams, it's not just going to be the semifinals where you see some championship caliber games. We've seen it the last umpteen years in Class 4A, maybe even in Class 3A, where you get those top 8 teams and good chance 6 of them are going to be in the top 8 rankings, no matter what poll you look at, if it's the ADG or Hootens, which a lot of people go by. So, you got possibility of Elkins and Malvern, Mills and Warren, Southside and whoever. I mean, there's you split them into 4 different quadrants because, as I was talking about the bracket, I was like, okay, the right side of the bracket and left side of the bracket, because there's 30 teams that make the playoffs in both Class 4A and Class 3A. There's 5 teams from each conference. There's 6 conferences in each classification. So looking at that top quadrant, you like Dardanelle and Arkadelphia to make the finals in that one. Game that catches my mind, DeWitt and Gentry. That's a long drive. Gentry's got to go down to DeWitt. Corey Graham's done a great job for DeWitt this year running the ball. Gentry can throw it all over the place, talking about Justin Bigham. That's where he came from. They're doing it with a backup quarterback, too. Talon Williams has been out for a while. So that's one of the games that kind of catch my eye in Class 4A are those 3 versus 3 matchups. DeWitt, of course, finished 3rd in the 8 conference. Because Monticello beat them 35-28 on Friday night. That was, how they got to be a 3 seed. And then Gentry finished 3rd in the Conference 1. Southside Batesville will play Haskell Harmony Grove. Congratulations to Josh Smith and the Cardinals. They defeated Bauxite on Friday night to get a playoff game. That's just like Texarkana making it in Class 5A, Haskell Harmony Grove. Not a great season, but they, caught some fire at the right time, and they'll be playing in the playoffs now. So Heber Springs, what Caleb Carmichael has done up there with Liam Buffalo at quarterback. Them and Blytheville is kind of an intriguing game. Then Monticello and Forest City. Coach Reggie Swinton takes his Mustangs to the playoffs. They can't be satisfied with just getting there now. Now they get to play a hot Monticello team that's playing really well. So a lot to look forward to kind of on that left side over there. And then, the right side, Mills, Warren. Warren playing really well. Nashville, don't sleep on those guys. They're playing a lot well. Like we talked about that last week, how expectations are so high every year. Mike Volarovich knew that, especially after he won his first state championship in his first year in 2015. So what Sean Jackson has done the back half of the season, they took Malvern to overtime last week. In week 9, took care of business in week 10. They're going to be a tough out. And Warren and Nashville in the second round doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, see, I mentioned this to you guys the other night, but seeing CAC go to Warren in a playoff game just gives me nightmares. If you know, you know. 2007, my junior year, we went there in the quarterfinals, and that was the year that or 2006. I'm sorry, and that was the year that Warren and Nashville played in the state championship game, and the controversy at the end was Jay Wright in, or was he not? I think he was, but that's got a definite uphill climb for the CAC Mustangs there. Looking on that right side, you look at that top right corner and you see Clinton and Gosnell Mills getting the winner of that game. I like Clinton in that one. I think just Clinton's playing. They've been just very consistent all year. I know you and Randy were there for the Football Friday Sonic Blast on Friday, this past Friday. I don't know that Mills is, assuming that they do get Clinton, Kevin, I don't know that Mills has been hit in the mouth quite like they will be if they play against Clinton. Now, obviously, Clinton has an offense. What is the goal here when you're playing Mills? Keep freshman Elijah Moody and that electric offense off the field. And that's what they can do when you run the kind of the wing tee offense that it's pretty much run heavy. That's all they do, basically. So I like that matchup right there. Who knows? That's one where Mills, we can really find out. They've heard people say, including us, look, the schedule has not been very tough, but they've handled their business, won their first conference title in school history. So I think off the bat, you've got a really good one right there. And then right below it, you said you expect to see Warren and Nashville in that one, man. A lot of history between those two as well.
Yeah, and, Mills, take it back. I think it was 1988 when they won their last conference championship.
Or that's right. So it's second in school history. Okay.
Lord knows we didn't win one when I was there. So, in Clinton with Zach Hunt and Rylan Jones running the ball, both juniors. There's only 8 seniors on that team. That's what, you talk to Coach Dufresne, and, he's been at Clinton 24 years now. And, they just get up there. They just do the same thing over and over again, and it just wears you out. We saw it last year. And this year you got a 2-headed monster back there. So they can play keep away from Mills. Mills didn't play well against Lone Oak. They turned the ball over. Lone Oak had some big plays. They had a kickoff return on them. And I think the point you bring up, and I like it, because the offense, it goes through Moody. You shut him down, you shut everybody down. They'll throw the ball up down the field and hope those fast receivers can run under it. I've never seen so many quarterback sweeps out of the wishbone and just broken down plays and everything. He can just make plays happen. But if you keep the ball away from him, he can't do anything, or, string the play out, and he's a great quarterback. It's only a freshman, so we'll get to see it, and that's an intriguing second-round matchup. But, get down to that bottom right quadrant on the right side, Elkins, man, it's going to be tough. Highland and Ashdown's intriguing. Highland went, a long way last year and got a win. Coach Matt Richardson got a win. Now they're the 4 seed out of the 7. Going up to Highland's going to be tough. Malvern 9-1. They're my favorite to play Elkins in the quarterfinals out of that bracket. But Elkins and Mean in the second round could be interesting as well.
And on down to Class 3A, where there is absolutely no shortage of storylines any week. We knew that probably coming in that would be the case again. You look at some of the possible matchups. You get Boonville at Fordyce in the quarterfinals, Mansfield against Newport in the second round, which, seeding-wise, that might not seem very impressive. But just look at that 3A3 conference, as we've talked about all year, and of course, what Newport – all that they bring to the table. Prescott at Salem possibly in the second round. Now, the Greyhounds, they fell in a game that really kind of got away from them in week 1, 31-22. That was at Prescott. And then you look at the very bottom, Risen. You've got Walnut Ridge and Risen. And, I got a chance to see Risen and Fordyce in week 9. And Risen's good, Kev. I mean, they are definitely well ahead of schedule and under Chris Vereen. I mean, their record is not a mirage. They've got a great defense. They've got a really great running game in the flex bone that they're running. Then also you've got, of course, the winner of the Rise and Walnut Ridge game is likely going to get Rivercrest. And if Walnut Ridge does come ahead against Risen, well, I mean, they're not unfamiliar with Rivercrest being in that same conference. So, man, you've got this 3A has a history of having pretty much good matchups across the board, even early on. And I think this year is going to be no different.
Absolutely. And, the two teams that get a bye, Bismarck and Glen Rose, not too far from each other, even though they're in different conferences. And Glen Rose, the way they started out the season, 0-3, getting just drummed by everybody. And next thing you know, hey, we're conference champs in 7-0. So what Coach Keithley done as Bismarck is exciting. And I know the town, the community is all behind what they've done. They beat Center Point this last week. Can they be healthy? That's the biggest thing they need going into that second round matchup, which could be Perryville or Atkins, depending on who wins that game. Osceola and Center Point is kind of intriguing. Center Point can score points, but can they stop anybody? And Charleston and Osceola in the second round. Talk about two teams with a lot of history. It's like that up and down the list. Fordyce, I like their draw. Could be Boonville in the quarters, like you said, in that bottom left quadrant right there. Mayflower, man, you knew, the first 8 weeks they're just rolling right along. Then they lose their last two games, lose the conference championship, and now they're the second seed. They get to host Lavaca in the first round. So Mayflower, Boonville, second round could be a good matchup.
Then if I can get out of this screen here, man, my computer's not cooperating with me well today. Okay, so last but not least, heading down to Class 2A, of course, where that's where the playoff picture is not as big because you don't have as many teams. But one that everybody's looking at, I know that has been talked about pretty much all year. And I'd like to apologize to everybody. I didn't line these up very well. I'll do better next week. Carlisle and Junction City at the bottom. So Carlisle has really – we've said, and I know I've said it a lot too, that, Carlisle has been the heavy favorite. And I still believe that they are the favorite. I don't know that they're quite the heavy favorite. Now, I've really liked what I've seen from Conway Christian. Again, I think Carlisle is the one to beat. They've come close so many different times in their school's history, the most recent being in 2022. And I know that after we covered the week 1 matchup between Junction and Carlisle, when Junction came up there, I talked to Coach Devin Ball from Junction, and he said, man, things just didn't really go well for us. Obviously, they lost 41-20. But, he expected to play them again in the postseason, and they fully expect to be back at Little Rock, do the Dragons. They've had many trips and come out with trophies. I think that bottom half, when you think of Conway Christian, Des Arc, a Mineral Springs team that has a chance to be dangerous, Kevin. They've been up and down all year, have the Hornets, and they ended last year about as brutally as you could think. But they beat up on a really good Murfreesboro team. They needed a solid win, just hadn't really had one over really what I would call a contender, but they finished the regular season off really strong. So I think Mineral Springs could possibly make a run. Up in that top half, you've got an EPC team that's pretty hot. Bigelow, the defending state champions, they're not the team that they were last year, but intriguing matchup there with Poen. And then, of course, Murfreesboro, Mark Tree. This is the exact same matchup that we had during the quarterfinals last year. A red-hot Mark Tree team came down to Murfreesboro, won that game, but Mark Tree's really beat up. TJ Hodges, I know, had I don't think that one was maybe as bad as we thought it was going to be, the injury, but he's going to be out. So this is a banged-up Mark Tree team playing against a Murfreesboro team that, yes, they got beat up on last week, but still have been really hot during their conference play.
Yeah, won their conference, but, yeah, now you get Mark Tree. It's going to be tough. TJ Hodges, I did get the report on Friday that he was okay. Thank goodness. Said it was just a stinger. It's going to kind of be a day-to-day situation. It wouldn't surprise me. I'd say 50-50 if he plays or not. So, I think the bottom half of the bracket in this one's a little bit stronger. Conway Christian, of course. Hazen played real well. Took Carlisle right to the finish, 28-20. Played them better than anybody had. Now they get to be a 4 seed just because of the tiebreaker rules in that 4-2A conference. You had 3 teams, them, Bearden, Poen, all tied at 5-2. So, yeah, tough first-round matchup for Conway Christian and Murfreesboro as the 2 of the 4 seeds right there. And, Junction City and Carlisle in the second round, I think Carlisle's better than what they were the first time these teams played. How much better is Junction City? That's the question. So they got a tough matchup with Cross County in first round. Don't count out Van Pascal. That's going to be a really good 2-3 matchup. And, like you said, Desart Mineral Springs, two teams. Desart had played well, lost the conference championship right there at the end to EPC. So they get to play a Mineral Springs team that's rolling. Fricks is back. They put up 56 on Murfreesboro. So look out. That could be a really good matchup in that first round at Desart.
What do you think of Bearden and Mount Ida? Mount Ida, they hung with, I think they really grabbed some attention when they took, what was it, 42 to 40? Conway Christian on that Thursday night. They took him to the wire. Just Conway Christian stopped him on a 2-point conversion. And I know Bearden has played a lot better down the stretch as of late. So what do you think of that matchup?
They have, they beat England 20-16. It was in the rain, wet. It was just a nasty game. So they beat a non-playoff contender 20-16. I think Mount Ida kind of has the edge in this one. They're a little bit more physical. What Coach White does in that offense is hard to prepare for, only given a week to prepare for it. So it wouldn't surprise me if Mount Ida, and we go back to what we said against Greenbrier and Maumelle, in terms of upsets, when you're looking at seeding, wouldn't surprise me if Mount Ida clips them in that first round game.
And then we'll close everything out. I wanted to give some recognition real quick to the cross-country state champions across the state that were crowned this week. In Class 6A, the boys took it. Bentonville took it for the boys' ranks. Rogers and the girls. 5A, Mountain Home for the boys. Russellville took home the girls. Boys for 4A was Pottsville. The girls was Episcopal. 3A, Maumelle Charter for the boys. Girls, Providence Academy. 2A, Ozark Catholic for the boys. And then the girls, it was Quitman, but I believe that is 6 in a row. I think I saw DJ Mars post something about that. So Don, I know they've got a really good track and field program as well. And then 1A, Founders Classical took home the boys, and then Kingston for the girls. So, Kevin, that means that just one more fall sport left, and that's football as we're closing it out here over the next few weeks. Now, you and Randy, the scoreboard show is one more week.
We do the first round. Usually do the first round of the playoffs. It used to only be an hour long. I think we got it to where it's good to do 2 hours because you get all the scores in the first hour. Then you get the brackets. Break down the games. Going into the second round in hour 2. So yeah, it'll be a full scoreboard show on Friday night. No football Friday. Randy may be going somewhere because on Saturdays he has to be in Fayetteville when there's a home game. So obviously Texas is playing at Arkansas Saturday morning at 11. So it wouldn't surprise me if he has a football Friday from somewhere west and northwest of Little Rock.
Sounds good. So catch that after we get we'll be going on live for the game of the week from First Security Stadium at Harding University between Harding Academy and Camden Fairview. Will be on at 6:45, and then Kevin and Randy will be on, and of course Barry Grooms of Hootens will also be on from 10 to 12. So taking you into the weekend, but a little bit shorter show this week. Of course, now that we don't have the full slate of games, but like I said, it's going to be fun from here on out. This is when we really separate the contenders from the pretenders, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. So check us out. I don't know. I'm trying to think of, I don't know if we're going to have, never mind. I was thinking of something else. I'm daydreaming here. But anyway, for Kevin Bohannon, I was thinking of something that we were going to be possibly doing for next week, and it doesn't even have to do with football. So I'm just sitting here all over the place today. But that will do it for this football segment of Arkansas Preps Weekly. You can catch us next week when we will recap a little bit of the first round and then preview the quarterfinals and also second round if we're talking 3A and 4A. So for Kevin Bohannon and all of us here at Natural State Sports, my name is Kyle Sutherland. We will catch you next week.